Name is Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching The Black Athenians, and I come to you every Friday at 4-ish from Broderick Flanagan Studio and Triangle Plaza in Athens, Georgia, and I try to do the quality of political education that will hopefully, I can't solve all your problems, but I might be able to clarify your problems. So at least you're not both problematized and confused about your ailment. And give you kind of a structure to help you think and fix your problems that come with political antecedents. That means the reason why you're stressed is because you're broke. And it turns out if you weren't broke, you'd be less stressed. So if people say that like, oh, no, you just smile. No, you can smile all you want, but what's going to solve your problem really is more money.
But Army,
it's not just mindset. It's also money. Yes.
Money doesn't solve problems.
Yes, it does. Black people. By the time you're watching this show, money would solve a lot of your problems.
I love when I hear people say that.
Not just money, like stable, like consistent, like interest and dividends. That stuff would solve a lot of your problems. So the problems money can't solve aren't necessarily the problems you're dealing with today. I'm going to deal with the problems that a lot of which money will solve, but some people don't want you to have your problem solved because they make a lot of money off of you having problems and being confused about it. So there are some and I'm not going to just tell you how to get money. I'm going to tell you how to get money in a way that's like that solves other problems and clarifies what the struggle is and what the fight is. Apparently, I was thinking about going to see the Harriet Tubman movie, Harriet, today, sneaking out. But it's hard to do because I have a ton of kids, so it was going to be like an ordeal. And then I read a review and it said that the big bad guy in it is black. And I'm like, I don't need to see a movie about a slave.
Hold on. How do we make a slave movie where we are the villain?
The villain. Well, we got to be the villain. Apparently they're like white villains too, but we're like the villain. The villain is black as a black guy. I don't need that. I don't need that in my life.
What actor took that role?
Man, even like during slavery, black men ain't shit.
Yeah.
Even doing like that. All right, we can do this great movie, but just make sure, first principles, triangle has 180 degrees. I'm
roasting an actor on Twitter later. I'm roasting an actor.
A squared plus B squared equals C squares, and black man ain't shit. These are just first principles of life that need to be in the rule of thirds, in photo. All of these things need to be observed. If we're going to make a movie that matters. So apparently, not even when we were free at all, we still weren't Jack. That's too bad. So I'm gonna miss Harriet. Maybe I'll catch it on Netflix or whatever when it comes out. But I'm not gonna pay for a movie that's just
somehow made us the villains of our own.
Black men didn't even survive. I don't know. We can't do anything right. So that's unfortunate. But maybe you should. Maybe, I don't know, write a comment in my comments about no. It was actually pretty redemptive and it was a nuanced view and maybe I'll go see it. But as it stands, I'm just gonna miss it. Read to my kids. But today we're going to talk about why risk, not necessarily work, is what makes us human. We all think, I got a lot of leftists who watch this show, some white leftists who watch this show, and, they study Marx, and Marx about, no, it's work, it's labor that makes us human. It's what separates us from animals, the way we divide up and think about labor, and that's where productive power comes from, work and labor. And that's secondarily true. Labor is important, and getting justice in the division of labor is very important for our humanity. However, that's predicated upon risk and the division of risk, and nobody talks about the risk. Nobody, I know as much about the way political philosophers and political theorists think and talk about the problems as anybody in the United States. Nobody is talking about risk the way they should. We can talk about division of labor. We can talk about justice. We can talk about some game theory type risk, but not risk as it relates to freedom, as it relates to the division of risk that makes us human. Honestly, I bet they do it better in business schools because at least, if I take a Fortune 500 company and 500, the top 500 universities in the United States, the Fortune 500 people will have a more sophisticated analysis of risk and what that means to their business than the 500 best like political theory and political science programs and political philosophy programs. Like the centrality of risk for humanity is both obvious and has been obscured because of the way we distribute risk. And even the risk of talking about risk. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, but before we get into it, I'm going to tell you one thing. Matthew, give me the prison diagram. What you think you see here, this is a distribution of American risk. It's not necessarily a distribution of American work, but this is a distribution of how America has institutionalized and doled out risk. And this is the result of that institutionalization and concentration of risk along gender and race lines. So who do you think eats America's risk?
I mean, I think that chart shows kind of clearly who's eating all of
who's eating the risk. And who should need just to keep their mouth shut about like the risk it takes to be an American?
There are two columns of those.
Yeah. Well, I just think like one group needs to be a little bit like, but if you you talk like this, they get really touchy, like about how vulnerable they are. But this is a map indexed to America's vulnerability. And the way we multiply, through our institutions, we act as a risk multiplier. Our institutions act as a risk multiplier so that the same act, when done in different gendered bodies, and different racialized bodies, like creates a different risk feedback. So you make the wrong comment when you're the wrong body, then you get thrown into this machine, a risk function, and this is how the machine, you get either 5x, 3x, 0.4x. Like anybody else who would have actually been risky, but you said, now it's just cute. No, it's just cute. Depending on your body. And with that, go ahead, Matthew, hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front.
To the beat, y'all.
All right, so we're here talking about risk that makes us human. So Patrick Henry is, is famous, one of those founding people, had a lot of slaves. And then but he's the one who said.
By the way, just to clarify, what's a lot compared to the others?
Yeah, just the regular amount of slaves. The mean. But he actually, he talked about it and said like, yeah, all right, so I have these slaves, but it's really inconvenient without them. Although I feel bad because I say give me liberty, but give me death. But,
He said me.
He said me.
That's eventually what they justified about. Well, I meant me.
I meant me. I mean, you need to cook. So Patrick Henry said, give me liberty, give me death. And that was kind of like, he was willing to risk his life for liberty and it was a cushy life, but he wanted liberty, he wants self-determination. And so we need to think about what that means in terms of what freedom requires. Freedom requires risk. There's this notion that you could be a good person if you just work hard. And this is one thing, so people who think this is one thing the capitalist owner class actually knows. No, I should get compensated for my risk. I take risk in doing this. I should get compensated for my risk. This is one thing the capitalist owner class gets, and they get a little bit resentful about people wanting I take the risk and I secure all of your paychecks, so I should get paid for being the person who's risking to secure your livelihood. Thank you for your work, but part of my work is a different kind of work that takes the form of risk. They're actually right about that. So if you just ignore what that means, that's a problem, because that risk is something that they're willing to do, which you might not be able to do, or might not be willing to do. Now, since we don't talk about risks in the working class and what that means, and risk in terms of, it's funny, Christians should be the best about this, because their guy, Gethsemane, he wanted to bounce, and then Jesus said, no, I'm going to do this. And instead we're like Peter, who didn't eat the risk in the right way. So it's really, Christians should have a very nuanced appreciation of what risk means for faith and life and freedom, but instead that's just not how it worked. But risk makes us human. Risk makes us free. It's what separates us from the animals who wouldn't risk their lives. You don't find a lot of animals risking their lives in the wild for recognition. They might do it out of instinct to protect their young, but not for just recognition, social recognition.
They don't want a cookie afterwards.
No, well, they don't want a government. They didn't risk their life to participate in Congress, which is what we're talking about with the founders, and to participate as an equal. They're not risking their life for that. But that's what separates us as people. We will risk our lives for freedom, right? And you can't be good unless you're willing to risk, because then because you understand that the person who is willing to risk is willing to kill you. That's part of their risk. And your surrender is like, all right, well, you can just do it. I'll worship you and I'll do all the work. So that's what the surrender looks like. That's what the surrender looks like. So the capitalist class who says no, I'm taking the risk, I should be rewarded for taking this risk, they're actually not wrong. What they do, though, since everyone else is so bad about talking about risk, what they do is then organize a government to subsidize their risk. So the one thing they're bringing to the table, their willingness to take risk, it ends up being subsidized by everybody else. So they end up socializing their risk while pretending that they're taking the risk. In Athens, Georgia, we're watching this right now, where we have a measure on the ballot that's getting taxpayers to backstop a public-private company, the Classic Center, for an arena. So, a lot of managers are getting paid, and a lot of people are getting paid for taxpayers to eat up their risk.
Yes.
So I have a few issues about that. But
we need an arena. We absolutely need. We don't have enough space for a hockey team.
Yeah, that's what Athens needs.
Yeah.
So what the problem is that if we don't talk about how important the distribution of risk is and what risk is for humanity, and we just talk about humanity just being about division of work and division of labor and not the division of risk, then it just confuses us as to what makes us human, where our rights come from, and what justice looks like. We just talk about justice in division of labor, not justice in division of risk. And let's be honest, we've gendered the distribution of risk, and we've racialized the distribution of risk. And since we've institutionalized it, we've racialized and gendered it with multipliers. So the same act, the same risky act, risks a lot more than if it does in a different body. And so what this ends up happening, and you're not gonna hear me for a second, but what ends up happening is that, say this is a white person's risk rising as they secure their humanity, and this is a black person's risk rising as they secure their humanity, doing the same acts. So what happens is it looks like this. So at the top is death. So this person's just kind of rising slowly, taking on the risk. But it takes a few generations. So that's what we're talking about. We've so subsidized white risk that like they say like, well, we take the same risks, but the consequences are so asymmetrical that it takes 4 generations for us to get the same rewards.
So what you're saying is a judge isn't going to consider the impact on your future if he has to make a decision.
Right. That was a pretty ostentatious saying like we need to mediate or moderate the consequences of your risky action, white person. Whereas black person, like your risk, we need to turn it up. And so that's what disparate sentences means when they're racialized. Like the same risky action produces disparation. And like a lot of those people in prisons are in jail because of like risks you take when you're poor. Risk you take when you're in a risky situation. And if you're not in a risky situation or you have some man eating your risk for you, you need to hush about the risk in life. Just hush about that. Because number one, a lot of you women out there have some man eating the risk before you. And a lot of you white people out there have like some black people eating the risk before you. This is like the American suburbs. The American suburbs was America saying like, all right, we're going to concentrate all of the risk in the hood and then like subsidize and give you a risk holiday in the suburbs. And
meanwhile,
it's easy to do a lot of work in the suburbs and run businesses in the suburbs because we've eaten all the risk and concentrated it in the hood as opposed to making the people in the hood whole. And we did this on purpose through like federal policy. We concentrated risk here, subsidized risk here, and it turns out that it's easier to do business in a place where it's less risky. You don't have to pay as much for security. Like people tend to pay on time. Like it's easier to do business. So we've just subsidized like white life in so many different ways. But one of them is by concentrating risk in black communities and subsidizing risk in white communities. So the distribution of risk needs to be just if anything's going to be fair. And here's how I made this move, and I do have enough time to do it here because I think it's important. Because I talk about, we need to talk about family structures and religion and how religion kind of screws up black life. Even white religion finds a way to screw up black life. Yeah, white religion finds
I'm gonna need you to be clear about how healthy you are.
Yes, white religion finds I am a healthy man, so if I end up dead, it's because some white Christian killed me.
Moving on.
Just be very clear about that.
Do we have that?
And I need you to take down their church.
Do we have that Jesus saves picture ready,
I'm
Matthew?
healthy, so I want it all to burn down if I end up catching something. Yeah, I'm super healthy. I had all the checks. So there is no justice in this world if something happens to me. All right, so now we're going to talk about the white church and how the white family is screwing up your life. Even white people, you're watching this, you know that the white family's screwing up your life. You got all these confused people in the suburbs about why they're depressed. This is going to make a lot of sense. All right, so if you're driving alone and you got someplace to go, and because you made a promise for any reason at all, you got someplace to go, you're driving alone, you're going to take some risks in how you get there. That's fine. And those risks are going to be different from the risks you take if you have a 3-year-old next to you in the passenger seat. You're going to drive different with a 3-year-old than you will alone. And you're going to be like, okay, well, it's me and maybe whoever I'm around. Or if there's nobody around, you'll do your donuts or whatever. You'll drive, you'll be a little bit more risky than you would if someone is in the car with you.
Thinking of some people I know who can barely drive when I'm in the car with them.
Just because
that's kind of scary.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense. And there's a reason why. It's because you're taking on not just your risk, you're taking on their risk and you're taking responsibility for their risk. And that's why you're going to drive. And they're not, if they're 3 years old, they don't have the agency to say all right, man, gun it. I need to get to this meeting too. So they're taking the responsibility for your risk. I mean, you're taking the responsibility for someone who couldn't make the decision themselves. And risk is something like food. Nobody can eat your food for you. Nobody can take your risk for you. So like the fact that they can't take that risk on themselves means that you have to take it. And because you have to take it, you're going to be responsible with it, which means you're going to drive a little bit more conservatively. Right? That makes sense. Right? Now, if you didn't care about them, if you just thought that they were your property and you just owned them like your car, then you would just do what you wanted to do anyway. You just do it because that was just a decision you made about your stuff. But no, you actually do care about them. You care about them as autonomous individuals. You just care about them as autonomous individuals who can't think for themselves. And so you take the responsibility of thinking for them, adopting their risk for them, and in a way that protects them. It's very paternalistic. But like we're talking about a 3-year-old, a paternal relationship is appropriate. And you just more conservative. You're not going to take the risks, even the risks that may mean your freedom. Because, you can't jeopardize someone else's life for your freedom, especially since this person is small and wouldn't make that risk of themselves for free. Because 3-year-olds, we don't expect 3-year-olds to be free. They're 3. We tell them what to do. Right? So the problem is, so you see, just having the presence of someone else who you have to take care of, who can't make a decision for themselves, but who is not merely your property, structurally tends to more conservative decisions. Right? Now, think about the white family, especially the white family in the South that's been churched into being like patriarchal and man is the head of the household in charge of leadership and protection and provisioning. Like, look, there's this guy named Piper. Just put in Piper, Manhood, and you'll get his book. It's what's in the water here, right? So a lot of these people de facto think that, man is the head of the household and he decides what we should do as a household. And if he's thoughtful about it, he'll listen to his other people. But like at the end, he takes full responsibility for what happens. It's garbage for a variety of reasons. But a lot of these white people think this way, and they teach other little white people this way, and then they grow up to be bigger white people. But if that's the case, then, and racial justice takes risk, what's that going to build into the structure of the white household? It's like, well, if I was alone, maybe I would do this racial justice thing. But because I have someone else I can take, who I need to take care of, but can't take care of themselves, I'm going to move to the suburbs. If because I have someone else who I need to take care of and can't take care of themselves, and I'm responsible for their risk, then I'm going to go to this segregation academy, right? However, if they were equal, then they could decide to risk together without the subordination, if they were equally sharing the responsibility. But now in these asymmetrical white households, they don't equally share responsibility. One person's in charge of risk and protection. The other person's in charge of cleaning shit. So, diapers. And I'm not a huge fan of asymmetrical households for a variety of reasons. One of which is because I see how unfreedom in the household turns into black degradation. Any household that's unfree in the United States ends up being bad for black freedom, right? So you need white households to get their stuff together in order for black people to be free, because then it licenses this asymmetrical risk, licenses then the white patriarch to do whatever it takes to protect his family, because that's his asymmetrical responsibility, and that often means shooting the random Negro.
Or hitting them with a car.
Or hitting them with a car. Or
instead of getting out and chasing
or
them.
if they I have to protect my family, but I need to emancipate my wife. And this is how, the white conservative and the white feminist all agree that black men deserve to be in jail. So I have to protect my wife, but like now she's a feminist, so she wants to go out and be out and about in the world, which means that I need to police the entire world from potential threats that look her. And make no mistake, I am a potential threat. I'm not an actual threat. I'm a potential lot of things. So like, or potential threats. I'm a potential. I don't know.
But there are some things that you are low potential these days.
I'm pretty low potential.
Like you're low potential going to be able to work after school.
Yeah, that is a low potential, and that's why my low potential for being able to get a job after telling the truth every Friday at 4 p.m. is why I need you to go to thefunkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month because I want to be able to pay Matthew and keep lights on. This is the first of the month. I wrote checks today. And so I need you to help me so that I can help you and pay all the people who make this show possible. But yes, so an asymmetrical family and a religion that teaches the asymmetrical family now tends to structurally conservative politics because you have one person taking over the risk of someone they have a paternal relationship with and who can't agree to risk for freedom. Now, if it was an equal household, they can agree to actually risk for freedom, and we can hold them each responsible for not risking for freedom. But now, since it's an asymmetrical household, we can't expect the patriarch to risk his wife's freedom, his wife's life, and we can't expect her to risk life because we've infantilized her. Patriarchal households like there's no asymmetrical household that doesn't end up somehow infantilizing the subordinate spouse. Like either that person is a responsible person who's on the hook for what happens or they're not. And if you're not a responsible person who's on the hook for what happens, then you're infantilized. So I
have a friend
yes.
who has a sibling going through a divorce. And she was a housewife.
Right.
And so the divorce starts, of course, and he cuts her off completely. She has no idea what to do.
She has no idea what to do. Yeah.
Because he's been taking all the risks.
He's been taking all the risks. And so you can say like, well, I've worked. And yes, you have worked. You have worked. The division of labor is a different thing. But this division of risk is a whole different thing too. So you can't just say like, well, I've worked hard and that's why you should respect me. No, but you haven't taken risk for things that could have gone bad. Like when things went south, it was like when things went well, it was we succeeded. When things went poorly, it was like, well, it was your responsibility. You should have been the head of the household. So like, no, you need to have a division of risk that holds both people accountable and then figure out a division of labor on top of that division of risk that like is equitable. And that's the way this works. Because you can't just divide up labor, but like asymmetrically shunt risk and expect to be not treated like an infant because you're not taking responsibility for what you do. And so this screws up the job market. And, it's hard because I go through these arguments with a room full of white people. And you're like, you talk like this in front of white people? Yes, I do. Now, I've worked the body a little bit. I don't do this the first day. I've worked the body a little bit, so by the time like I come out, and I'm like Mayweather. I got good mechanics, but not really knockout power. I don't do it the first day. So by the time I come out in the 10th round, like they don't know why they're breathing hard, and they don't know I can tell their tells. So and then I give the knockout punch, but. That's exactly that. Someone was in my class. That's exactly how it goes. And so I flipped a lot of them this Thursday because we talked about like, all right, so this is how the structure of risk, not even if both people are good people, just the structure tends to conservative politics, which tends to anti-black politics. And that's just because of your white patriarchal household. And it can't, and since there's no cop in the household to make sure that you guys are treating each other like taking responsibility for it, it's what it is to be a household. There's no juridical barrier in it. Then that's where like injustice can just keep being reproduced. So you can't have any sort of racial justice until we actually teach white women to take their fair share of risk. But we have an entire political economy that's designed around white women not having to take any sort of risk, and any sort of risk they take is seen as like, oh. And and any sort of risk. What's up? What did he say?
What he just said. Any kind of risk is I'm being coerced.
Any sort of risk is like, I'm being coerced. No, you're just taking a hint of your fair share of risk. You got a whiff of it, you're knocked out, you fainted. For other people, that whiff is smelling salts. All right, let's go.
No, I don't think they don't pass out. They turn on the tears.
They turn on. Well, what happens is
everything.
white women get the hint of risk. They turn on the tears, and then like everything needs to be policed. And then the Gestapo comes down and starts locking up Negroes. Just because there's such like a horrible normalization that just distorts of the amount of risk that's just allowed. I remember, so there's this woman, Katie Porter, who resigned in Congress in California. She resigned because she had an affair with a subordinate, and then a lot of people. And
affair is a strong word.
There's a lot that goes on here. But what happened? What's important for this point is that there are a lot of I got a lot of feminists in my life, and they were talking about how like you should never have an affair across. You should never, sleep with a subordinate, and you should never, as a subordinate, you should never sleep with your boss, and you shouldn't screw across power differentials in the work or any place. And I'm thinking, if I didn't screw across power differentials, I wouldn't be able to screw.
Still be a virgin.
I'd still be a virgin. Like I'm just trying to figure out, like pretty much everybody else left is black, white, whatever. They could, with just one phone call, put me in jail, and everyone be like, yes, he deserved it. What did he do? I just know he did it. You get him, girlfriend. You don't even know
which is the reaction these days, generally.
It's just like everyone, like for the last 20 years, people have been chomping at the bit for me to do something to put me in jail before. So like, if I couldn't screw across power, everybody's got the power to put me in jail. I can't put nobody in jail. Nobody's going to be put in jail because of something I said. I can say he did it. They'll be like, yeah, but you though. But you must have done something that made it.
I could be holding the results, and they would be like, Army did it.
I'm like, no, I'm innocent. So like everybody's in an asymmetrical power relationship relative to me. Everybody. If I couldn't screw past like power across power differentials, I'd just be a virgin.
Yeah.
So like we need to teach people to abuse, like not to abuse power. But instead of teaching people not to abuse power, we just ban like structures that could enable the abuse of power, which is bad. Nobody teaches these people how to wield power justly. Like literally nobody. I asked my class, and they were like, well, the Boy Scouts. And then one guy was like, I'm
an Eagle Scout. That's a lie.
I'm an Eagle Scout. I went through the whole thing. That's a lie.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. Yeah. So like nobody teaches people how to not abuse power. So these wannabe entrepreneurs read a Steve Jobs bio, and then all of a sudden it turns out they're bosses and are jackasses because the only thing they learned was from out of a Steve Jobs bio. And then these women don't learn anything because like nobody in their lives, in their suburban white lives, thought that they would actually ever have power. They might have like the symbolization of power. They all wanted degrees, but nobody actually expected them to make decisions that mattered. That was for their husbands to make. And so like we didn't teach them how to actually wield power justly either. So we just got a whole bunch of people who either know how to be paternal in their wielding of power or like don't know how to wield it justly. And that's just white life. And unfortunately ends up being bad for black people. Black people win more egalitarian relationships. So like, it's just, we all got to just take responsibility for all shit in a different way. But in the white community, they're screwed up and how they gender the division of risk. And it ends up like we get the collateral damage for it.
And let's be very clear.
Yes.
I went through a Mormon Boy Scout program.
Yeah.
Like, it's a factory.
Boy Scouts are pretty much, like a third of Boy Scouts are Mormon now.
Yeah. So I was thinking
LDS Church pulls out of the Boy Scouts. I don't even know if you have Boy Scouts.
And they're threatening to.
The gay thing, right?
Yeah. I was actually thinking about when you did the episode about what it means to be a good citizen.
Yeah.
That episode was better than everything I learned getting my world citizenship and my U.S. citizenship merit badge. Like, I'm like,
And you
oh.
got documents.
Yeah.
got receipts that says I'm a good citizen of the world. But,
No, it does not. No, it says I'm a good citizen, but I look at that and I'm like,
no, people abuse the office of citizenship all the time. Pretty much anytime they're calling the cops on me. So people abuse the office of citizenship all the time. They enter the election booth and they think I should be able to do what I want to, when I want to, because I want to. No, that's an abuse of your office. As a citizen, you should be thinking about governance for the whole when you're in the electorate and when you're in the booth. But I did a whole video on that. You can go back and find it. It's good. All right, so we don't teach people how to wield power well, and if we get the injustice in the white family and in the white church, there's no external policing that can fix it because it's in their soul. If God tells you to be a good Christian, which means submit to your husband, which means in these white Christian churches, it means submit to your husband, which means you're not really responsible for what you do. It's really your husband's fault. Yeah, like if I'm dating a girl like that, why do I talk to her about if I'm going to marry her? I talk to her dad first. Like if I'm dating her, because she.
well, that's the tradition. Is you
ask
ask your
That's
dad.
where the tradition comes from because, like we've said, like she's not a real person. And like if the dad can veto it, like of course I'm going to talk to him first. Why waste my time? I'll deal with you later. I'll talk to your dad first, and then if he says it's okay, I'll talk to you. Because why would I talk to you? Because like he's just going to veto it anyway. Like that's what you're taught. And if I'm like trying to sell this white family something, yeah, I'll talk to the wife, whatever. But if he's going to make the decision and veto it, I'm going to talk to him first to make sure it's okay, and then I'll work you because like whatever. If he can just veto anything, the problem comes now. This is how I set it up. I was real slick with it too. I picked one of these white girls, and I said, all right, you're a hiring manager. Jill, you're a hiring manager. And I'm saying this for people because you can do this in your class too. I'm teaching. You're a hiring manager, Jill. You have to pick between, and we're in Georgia, you have to pick between some 35-year-old white lady, and you don't know if she's in a patriarchal marriage, or a 34-year-old white guy, and whether he's in a patriarchal marriage or not, it doesn't matter because he's the decider. You're a hiring manager, right? You're going to put like $75,000 into training them for a job. And at any point in time, and the hours are dicey and some of the responsibilities are dicey. So like at any point in time, the husband can say like, I think for the good of our family, you should quit your job and stay home. Now you're a hiring manager, Jill. Who are you going to pick?
I mean, I will tell you from my HR experience that I owe some people an apology right now.
Yeah. And this isn't, just think about what happened. And they're going to be rational. As a hiring manager, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the firm, who has a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders to not waste their money. So like as a hiring manager, who are you going to pick? So the screwed up white family that has distributed risk and responsibility has now screwed it up for all women who now not just are in a patriarchal marriage and trying to get a job, but look like they could be in a patriarchal marriage and could get and they're trying to get a job relative to the guy who, like, whether he's in a patriarchal marriage or not, doesn't matter because we're dealing with a decider. And if he says to us that he's going to work here for 10 years, then he is responsible for actually working here for 10 years, right? And so Jill in my class said she had to admit that, like, yeah, I hired the guy. And I said, isn't that unfortunate?
Yeah.
The whole class was like, it brought a lot of some people are in their way to this day about what transpired, midday yesterday. But this is how a patriarchal white family screws it up for all people, right? Then I said, all right, so let's change. Then I picked another white girl because I got a ton of them in my class. And I said, look, all right, so you're a congressperson. Congressperson Janice. Making up names. Congressperson Janice. And I am a lady president. I am a white lady president in a patriarchal marriage. For a few reasons, this would be both tricky, but like Michelle Bachmann could have been someplace, could have been someone. Or Sarah Palin, depending. So we're working on, McCain wins and then
my brain, I'd forgotten both those names.
Yeah, they exist. And so we're working out a bill. Congressman Janus and President, Sarah Palin or whomever, Michelle Bachmann. Right? We work out this bill. It's a great child care bill. It will actually provide child care for all these people. It's great. It's fantastic. And then, you know what? I go to my home and I talk to my first husband, Todd, or whatever Michelle Bachmann's husband's name is. And he says, you know what? For the good of our family, I prayed with it. I prayed about it, and I talked to our pastor about it. I think you should kill this bill. This isn't the bill. And if you're a good Christian, and if your church has taught you that you should submit to your husband about family issues, then what happened? What happened? You've jeopardized your office because we all have multiple offices. It just so happens that you're the president. And you've jeopardized your office because it turns out we didn't elect you. We elected your husband. Because your husband has now decided through the household, because all these offices are connected, like what legislation gets passed.
So you mean what you're saying is a candidate that say, I don't know, covered up and paid off people about her husband's affairs would probably be a bad choice.
Yeah. Well, it depends, right? Well, if it's a patriarchal marriage, it would be the difference is responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think your soul, the church has taught you that your soul depends on handing over your responsibility for the family to your husband with your advice and consent, but he makes the decision, then I can't hold you accountable for anything.
Okay.
So I don't elect you, I elect your husband.
I'm going to leave God out of that situation.
Right. This is a patriarchal marriage.
I'm not sure it's a church thing.
Yeah, no, this is a patriarchal marriage with church backing that says we prayed on it and we decided that, you should quit your job. Or we prayed on it and we decided that for the household, you need to kill this bill. And so that's going to be the problem. Now, if I elect a guy who thinks that, at least I can hold the guy responsible. But imagine me as Lady President Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann going back to the congressman and saying, well, we have to kill the bill because my husband said it would be bad for our family.
Oh, they never say that. They'd be like, we prayed about it.
We prayed about
Notice they said, because you kept using the phrase we
both of them. Yeah, we prayed about it, and our family decided that it's bad for us.
Yeah.
when it really happened was it was bad.
He prayed about it.
Well, we prayed about it, but he got the decision. Because in these patriarchal white families, the guy with the penis has some sort of red line to God, whereas the woman has to go through an operator. So that is how a screwed up white family or the screwed up patriarchal family where you distribute risk and responsibility in a particular way ends up screwing it up for everybody, including the people who look like they could be in that family. And just the structure of that family tends to conservatism because all paternal relationships tend to conservatism because you're taking responsibility for someone else who can't take responsibility and can't risk for freedom for themselves. Right?
I have a few friends I'm going to have to send this out to. They may be
pastors. Yeah, no, it's important. So the founding fathers now got around this because they just treated their ladies like property. So there's a difference between the decisions you make for your car when you drive recklessly and the decision you make for another person when you drive recklessly. If you treat the person like a person, it actually tends you to conservative. If you treat the person like you're just property, you're like, well, this extension, I'm risking myself. It's just a form of myself. So it's this middle status that actually screws up the relationship. It's the infantilization that screws up the responsibility and tends all decisions to conservatism if you're going to be responsible. Now, if they were equal, you could decide together to risk. And so you would still if your buddy's in the car and look, we need to get to this meeting, man. And you think we need to get to this meeting, man, you'll just drive and you'll take all the risks because you're in it together. You're in it with another person who's decided to risk and who has mind, right? So anyway, risk is what makes us human. We can't risk. We can't eat other people's risks in the same way that we can't eat other people's food.
Or shouldn't.
Well, we can't eat their food and them get full.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my dinner tastes real good when you eat it. No, that doesn't work like that. No, we can't eat other people's food and expect them to get full. We can't eat other people's risk and expect them to be human. And
That's perfect.
Yeah. And if both people don't take responsibility, if both people do take responsibility, you got the Declaration of Independence, where it's like, all right, well, we're all pledged to each other to, fight England onto the death. And that's how you can go forward with everyone taking the risk. But they have to do it as equals. And they have to take the risk on themselves to pledge forward. But you preclude that by structuring the family a certain way. It's impossible now for both people to take on the risk in a patriarchal family, in a complementarian family, because one person has ceded risk to the other person, and then and it just builds in the paternalism, which builds in the conservatism, and
results in a lot of locked up black men.
And it results in a lot of locked up black men, because now I have to do what's safest for my family, not what's freest for justice, not promoting justice. I have to do what's safest for my family. So yeah, hope this has been educational. I think it has been. I think this bears rewatching and watching and rewatching a few different times, because I went through a lot of moves, and I've kind of been working you audience, but just go back and take some notes and watch this again, because I'm right. The distribution of risk is as important as the distribution of labor if we're going to talk about justice. And think about who in your life eats risk in an asymmetrical way, and who in your life, and the strategies they've kind of employed to obfuscate the fact that they've shunted their risk onto other people. All right, take care. Peace. I will see you next week.